Well, a lot of people on the internet think I'm a bottom.
Oh my God, I love it. That caught me from left field. Hi, I'm Munroe Bergdorf.
Hi, I'm Olly Alexander.
And you're watching Back and Forth.
It's actually quite bizarre because when I was going to the club in like my early 20s, I feel like
I was DJing with your
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend.
With my ex, yes.
It was like a club called Circa.
Circa. That's
yes,
it.
and you were there.
I did come there once.
Yes, no, we did meet, but we didn't know each other. I think that was right at the beginning of your career.
Yes, yeah. It was
now
before we
it's
released
full circle.
anything. What do you think people's biggest misconception is about
I was
you?
going to ask you the same thing.
Magic.
That I'm angry and that it's not okay to be angry if I was. I think the biggest misconception is that I'm very serious, that I'm very aggressive and angry and controversial for controversial's sake. I didn't have an option in, being controversial. When you're trans, unfortunately, it's such a hot topic at the moment and people are weirdly obsessed with our bodies. And, I'm a black body, I'm a trans body, I'm a queer body. And there's instantly three things there that people have misconceptions about. So when you're also a sexual woman who likes to have sex and enjoy sex and...
How dare you?
Well, exactly. It's kind of like, people think that you're more controversial than you actually are. And I don't know, what about you?
Well, a lot of people on the internet think I'm a bottom.
Oh my God, I love it. That caught me from left field. We know so much now.
But in reality, like most gay men, I would like to remind everybody, I'm versatile. Like, there's not one way to have sex. That's all I want to remind people. And if you do just want to have sex, if you are a bottom, that's great. I love bottoming too. But I just think we're obsessed with kind of putting people into like labels or tops.
No, for sure. I was thinking about this. I actually had like a moment in the cab on the way here. And I was on the phone and I was like, you know what? Sexuality is purely dependent on how someone else identifies. Because you may think that they're a man or you may think that they're a woman, but you're not actually sure. Because how much do you even really know anybody and how much does anybody even really know themselves? You're just you're just in love and having sex with a body.
Who are you on the phone to right now?
I do. Oh.
Who was that? Getting all that?
My friend Tommy. He gets all of my,
deep.
I have moments.
But when you start to unravel it all, I mean, it is kind of just like...
We are just, spirits and souls that look different. You do a lot of speaking about mental health. How is that important to you in intertwining that with your music?
Well, I guess for me, I've had my own, personal journey with my own mental health. It's taken me, since I was about 14, 15 to kind of get to grips with how to deal with feelings like depression, feelings like anxiety, like what you do when you're in a panic situation, when you're at crisis and how you pick yourself back up. And all of those lessons that I try to like implement in my daily life, and my work and the music I make. And one of the things I did learn along the way is that kind of sharing your experience can be really, really helpful. Not just for you, but for other people. But this is actually something I do want to ask you because I've been aware of you for a long time, but I have really noticed in how having to face issues and embody something that the nation seems to be obsessed with, and to have to kind of tackle all of that and maintain sort of your busy schedule or the things that you do, and like you always look amazing. And the things I wonder is like, how do you look after your own mental health, really?
I think the reality is that a lot of people don't really ever recover from bad mental health. I think it's a case of maintaining and monitoring. One of the things that I really struggle with is self-sabotage. And that usually comes as a result of my PTSD symptoms. So when I feel like my life's getting out of control and I have the urge to get out of myself, I think that's why I was in clubs for so long, because it was just such an escapism. So I think now it's really down to focusing on what I do like about myself, what I do like about my life, what I can control, what I should be doing. Do I need to go out or do I need to drink more water? And like cook myself a good meal and like things like that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like a mental diary and picking out the signs that I'm not going down the right route. Being a pop star yourself, who was the first person that you saw live?
Oh, I think it was Coldplay,
Was it?
Yeah.
That's a really epic one.
Yeah, it was my friend had tickets. Yeah, I think it was Coldplay. Who was yours?
Spice Girls.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Where? Which
Wembley.
tour? Oh, no!
Wembley. And it was with Jerry.
Wow.
It doesn't count if it wasn't with Jerry. Jerry's boobs came out as well.
Oh, no.
I know. Do you remember when that was a thing, when Jerry's boobs always used to come out?
Actually, no.
At the Brit Awards.
Oh, I remember the Brit Awards, yes.
Who's your favourite, like, kind of artists at the moment, whether or not it's message or music?
Well, I really love MNEK. I think he's an angel and he's so talented. Yeah, I love him. I want him like to just fly. You know, he's out here doing it for like queer, black, femme pop stars, you know, like.
It's so encouraging to see like people like Uzo, people like yourself. I feel like you're challenging masculinity in a way that isn't obvious. It's just like you just getting on with it.
Yeah.
And just being able to just provide a reference point for boys that don't fit in to what society's telling them they should be. You know, we don't need to always keep on deconstructing everything. I think it's all about examples of just making people feel less alone.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree. How has your life changed in the past year since you've kind of become, I suppose, a bit more well-known?
I feel like I'm at a position where I know myself more than I've ever known myself. I know what I'm capable of now. I don't know, it's been a real crash course in how negative the media can be, but also how loving people can be also. I think being empathetic and putting yourself out there is quite revolutionary.
Yeah, I agree completely. I couldn't believe like how negative the press were towards you and like how crazy it got, you know, and so...
It's rather bizarre.
Right? But it feels like you've come through like fighting and you're just like thriving.
You know, like when you are yourself and when you're being yourself, literally no one can really hold anything against you.
Yeah.
As long as you're not being, you know, nasty to anybody, which I wasn't. You know, I was speaking about things that people didn't really understand.
Yeah.
And I think when anybody is hearing something for the first time, there's a natural resistance. So, I mean, I don't really hold it against a lot of the people that disagreed or were very, you know, hostile towards me because, you know, they don't really know any better. The press, that was deliberate, and they have a responsibility that they neglected, and it was very clear why they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
The way that LGBT people and women of colour, or people of colour in general, are written about is really irresponsible. Speaking of like gay culture and nightlife and experiences, how much of that is in the new album?
All the songs feel like it's just me trying to figure out a way to express myself from, you know, the way that I'm experiencing the world, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think a lot about how gay men especially desire each other and the kind of emotional transaction that happens and, you know, what we bring to a relationship or to a moment of desire and how that's kind of unique for gay men, you know, what's unique about that for gay men. And so I'm interested in that experience. But one song called Hallelujah was just literally about going out, because I used to do this. I used to go out just to hook up with someone, you know, because I just wanted to like be someone else in the club, in the darkness, and to dance, like just be around bodies and, you know, really try and connect that way. And there was something that was really beautiful about that. But, you know, there are times when it can be really dark. And I think, you know, I have a conflicted relationship with kind of nightlife and you know, gay bars. But
it's important that that conversation's had though, isn't it? Because I think for so long, especially with the LGBT community and pop culture, it's been quite exploited. So to now have narratives that you're bringing to the table and other artists are bringing to the table, which is showing how complex it is to be LGBT.
Yeah, well, thanks.
What does the new album sound like in relation to the singles? Because we've had Sanctify, which was like, I got kind of a noughties feeling.
Yes.
So like a bit of like a Christina, Britney kind of like that kind of vibe. And the moves that you're busting in the video.
Directly rips from Britney.
References heavily, not rips up. Yeah. And then we've got If You're Over Me. And I said that it sounded like The Cure to me.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was giving me that kind of 80s vibe of like pure pop. So there's a part in Palo Santo where the android that's looking after you, android number 10, asks you what you look like under your clothes. And you say, probably like you. What does that mean? Because I feel like it's quite coded.
One of the reasons like I thought having androids kind of be a vehicle for this story was so cool, because genuinely like I'm really fascinated by like artificial intelligence and like what that might become. And you know, I was imagining like if I was an android, like how would I feel about my body? And I imagine that these androids, they want to be more human basically, like they want to have the anatomy. I think a lot about kind of how technology is kind of making us sort of reassess our own humanity basically. But then I also kind of wanted them to remind people like how precious it is to be human and to have like, all the complicated shit that comes along with that.
It definitely came across. No, it definitely came across 100%. It was like, you could definitely see the dichotomy between your on-stage persona and behind the scenes when things weren't going so well, and you're not an android. You can't just perform over and over and over again and not feel.
Yeah.
So where does that come from? Does that come from experience?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also interested in like when you're a performer, the audience like wants something from you, and like what exactly that is, and like do you always give it, or like what's...
How much do you hold back from yourself?
Exactly.
What was the craziest moment that you've had in your career, and who is the celebrity that has made you the most starstruck?
My friend, who's a songwriter, was like, oh, do you want to come to the cinema tonight? Adele's having a private screening of It. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to just watch It with Adele. I was like, yeah, I'd love to. She was like, obviously really, really nice. She's Adele. She was like, where's the fucking pizza? And like giving everyone pizza and drinks. And then on the way out, Harry Styles is sort of like right here. And then like out of Soho House, like comes this like incredibly shiny woman wearing massive heels and like really big hairdo. And she's like, Harry, then, you're not going to fucking say hello to me. And it was Mel B. And I was like, I can't cope with Scary Spice. Scary Spice is here.
So what's next?
We are doing some shows like around the album release here in America and in Europe. And then we're going to do festivals and then tour properly later in the year. What about you? What's next for you?
So we're figuring out what we're going to do with the next documentary. I'm actually going to be venturing into talk shows. So yeah,
So this is kind of like a little
This is like a test run.
Oh.
You're my first guinea pig.
I'm so excited for that. That's going to be amazing.
Well, thank you for talking with me.
Thank you.
And I love the film, and I can't wait to hear the album. I'm your #1 stan.
Yay.
For life.
Yay. I'm your #1 stan.
Cheers.